What's happening, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome. It's just past 9:30, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Thanks for hanging out with Johnny Gaz Live on another Tuesday. What a great Tuesday of sports we have ongoing. A lot of topics in front of us to talk about. So many good things happening with our Lions. We had Brad Holmes speak later in the afternoon today. We're going to talk about that. We're going to look at the free agents again and kind of talk about what is next for our Detroit Lions. But before we get into any of that, we have a huge game going on as we speak, winding up. We got the Tigers roster rounding into shape for opening day. Pistons with a victory over the Lakers. They continue to roll without MVP Cade Cunningham. And we have a fun topic for later on in the live with our Detroit Sports Time Machine. So I'm going to have a ton of fun stuff for you guys today. I'm so happy you could be a part of it. Welcome, everybody. Don't know Grits in the house. How you doing, Mile Marker? How we doing, guys? Appreciate you very much for getting involved early and often. Millicent, how you doing? Welcome. Make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. Let's share this stream out. Let's get people in this early so we can start talking some Detroit sports. As we always do here with Johnny Gaz Live, let's start by going around the D. All right, let's kick it off by going around the D. I think the first thing is we got the Red Wings wrapping up right now in LCA against the Ottawa Senators. Right now, unfortunately, I have them down 3-2. They were down 3-0 at one point in this game in the second period. Red Wings did get a goal late in the second period, Dominic Shine, and then Dylan Larkin just into the third period a little bit. But unfortunately, right now, with just a few seconds to go, Wings trailing 3-2. Let me know if anything crazy happens, guys, but I will give you the final score as soon as that becomes final here in LCA. Unfortunately, I did get to watch a little bit of that game, and there were actually boos raining down from the LCA crowd when that Wings team pulled down 3-0. Again, they were able to battle back 3-2, so give them a lot of credit there. Obviously, Dylan Larkin back in the lineup today coming off of his injury, so that was good to see. But unfortunately, just like Don't Know Grit said, this is close but not quite the story of the 25-26 Detroit Red Wings. And this would be a huge loss. This was a pivotal matchup because the Wings had just fallen out of playoff status, just out of that last wild card position. The Islanders had jumped them in the standings as of last night. Then Ottawa trailing them by a point. So unfortunately, this will now be a 4-point swing for the Red Wings in the wrong direction and will keep them out of the playoff chase, at least for another night. But the problem is, where do they then start to stack victories to try and get themselves back in it? There's only so many games remaining here on the Wings schedule, and this one is a big one, as it appears they're going to fall at home to Ottawa 3-2. They've gone assuming they lose this hockey game, they're going to go 3-5-2 in their last 9 games. And teams like the Ottawa Senators are surging at the right time. And obviously, with this victory over the Wings tonight, that's huge for the Ottawa Senators. And there's 11 games left on the schedule. So, I mean, this is a huge pivotal loss for the Wings here today against the Ottawa Senators. Let me know in the chat, guys. Are the Wings done? Does this loss pretty much take them out of playoff contention for the 10th straight season in a row, 7th under Steve Yzerman? Are they going to miss the playoffs? It's just incredible. The history of Little Caesars Arena, they have not seen a playoff hockey game, and it appears the way things are shaping up now that it might be the same here for 25-26. So let me know what you guys think. Stevie Y about to continue his reign as the longest tenured GM to never make the playoffs. It's amazing to think about it that way. Don't Know Grit. And you wonder, we've said this before, but if his name wasn't Steve Yzerman, would he still be the GM of the Detroit Red Wings? I don't know if I want to go down that path here today, but it's just an unfortunate loss for the Wings when they really had to have one at home. You hope that the momentum of getting your captain back would have hopefully given them some positive momentum to bring into this hockey game, but falling down 3-0, it's tough to crawl back from that, and this is a huge loss for the Wings. So now all the pressure in the world kicks in. They have to get victories. Ottawa now 15-3-2 in their last stretch. So they're playing good hockey. Detroit obviously trending the opposite direction. And late in the season, momentum is everything. And for this Red Wings team, it seems like once they hit the month of March, all the momentum that they have built up, all the goodwill that they build up throughout the year seems to fall off. Unfortunately, a loss like this just shows that it's unfortunately happening again. Cheers, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Don't know says Gibson peaked too early. I think there has been a little bit of a drop-off in his play as of late. There's definitely some evidence to that. He let up some soft goals in that loss to the Boston Bruins, I thought. And he's been very good for the Wings. There was even talks midway through the season that he could be a Vezina candidate. I think that's sort of fallen off a little bit. And again, Wings lose this hockey game. Final at LCA, Ottawa 3, Detroit 2. So let's flip this over and take a look at the current standings. Let's look at the current standings here. The wild card standings. There we go. So looking at the wild card standings now, Detroit has 84 points. Actually, I don't know if this has been updated as of yet. So Ottawa will now jump Detroit and be tied for the second wild card spot with the New York Islanders. So Detroit will then be still a point off of that mark. What's up, broski? How you doing, buddy? So the Wings with a huge loss here today. That's a killer. That's a killer. And again, where do they now find victories with 11 games to play on their schedule? Let's take a look at it. Remaining games on the Red Wings calendar. Obviously, tonight, the loss against Ottawa. They then go to Buffalo. They have a game at home against Philadelphia. That's a winnable hockey game, but even Philly's been surging as of late. Then they have Pittsburgh, Philadelphia again, New York, Minnesota, Columbus, Philly, New Jersey, Tampa, Florida. Now, they do play Philly 3 times in that stretch. And Philly, again, fighting for their playoff lives. They've been not great this year, but there's opportunities for wins. The question is, can the Wings go get it? And even if they do, even if they had won this hockey game, guys, even if they won against Ottawa today and they were able to string enough together to get in, do you trust this team was trending towards the Stanley Cup? I don't know. But the bottom line is the Wings lose today. They fall further out of playoff contention. They are outside of the playoffs at this moment, now behind both Ottawa and the New York Islanders for that last wild card spot. So I'll keep you posted as we move forward. But let's flip it into something a little bit more positive. Yesterday, the Pistons played the Lakers. And the Pistons have now won 4 straight games with this most recent victory over the Lakers, 113-110. No Cade Cunningham, no primary scorer, no all-star engine, no MVP. And yet they still find ways to win. Last night, Daniss Jenkins, 30 points, a career high, making key buckets at the right times, becoming that scorer. I think that the Pistons not only need now, but will he now be the guy when and if Cade returns for the playoff stretch? Can Daniss Jenkins not only, I don't think they'll ever ask him to be a primary scorer. That's going to be Cade's when he comes back. But will a guy like Daniss then assume the secondary score option that I think the Pistons were really looking for? And obviously right now in Cade's absence, it has just been huge, his play. Yeah, I don't know, says Daniss put all the haters to sleep last night. I agree with you. I mean, I certainly think there was something to be said for his play since the contract was signed. But this is exactly why they felt confident to give him a contract. And I think this is exactly what the Pistons needed in a night where they had to have some scoring coming from somewhere. They got it. JD with a double-double, 20 points, 11 rebounds. It's funny because it's not just a one-game thing for Daniss. He had a spurt here against Golden State, 22 points, 8 assists. So you're seeing him stack these good performances on top of each other. And so that's a really good sign. That's not just filling in, it's showing that the production might just be there for him. He's taking over, he's running the offense, good with assists, making reads, keeping the system intact. He's making a huge difference right now. I think the other thing is defensively, again, they go back to leaning on what their strengths are. Obviously, defense is one of them. Banging the boards, points in the paint, that's where the Pistons excel. I think they're still number 1 in points in the paint. I believe number 3 in opponents' points in the paint. So being able to lean on where they truly dominate, that's where JD comes into play. Defensively, a guy like Ausar Thompson coming back has been huge. His defense, Jalen Duren's defense towards the end of the game. I mean, you see how that makes such a difference. And those things they're really leaning on now in this stretch without Cade Cunningham. So it's not just the scoring that's helping get this done. It's really the team's identity that's been formed throughout these last few years. And then, of course, this season that's really been formed, the identity of this Detroit Pistons team. So let me know, guys, did you watch the game last night? What did you think of the victory over the Lakers? Millicent says, my son was at LCA for that wild ride of a game, multiple lead changes and ties. He was at the Lakers game? That's awesome. That's a great game to go see, obviously, with Luka and LeBron down there, and both of them played very, very well. Luka, big night. Luka doing Luka things, and LeBron with almost a triple-double, even after starting off slow. So it's not like the Lakers didn't bring a decent game to Detroit, but I think riding what was a 9-game winning streak the Lakers are now cut off by Detroit. So that's a huge win. Without your superstar, with a streaking good Western Conference team, Detroit just proving that they're not just a one-player squad. I mean, I think that's really what this is coming down to. What's up, Dwayne? How you doing? Says Jenkins needs to slow it down just a tap. I mean, here's the deal. The aggressiveness is good to a certain point, but this Pistons team also has the proponents to turn the ball over a lot, make careless mistakes in bad moments. Now, they had a 16-point lead in that game against the Lakers, and they almost gave that up. So it's not all because of Daniss and his aggressiveness, but that's a part of it, Dwayne. So I'm with you, buddy. Yeah, that was, one of those clutch time make by Daniss when you had to have it. That was great to see. Luka's always going to have the ball in his hands as the primary scorer for the Lakers. He just got D'd up. The Pistons D'd them up on that last possession like they have all year long. JD covered him like a blanket, and although Luka can make that crazy shot, it's exactly the position you want to put them in, and airball, and it was perfect. Big win for the Pistons. So little juxtaposition there. Obviously, the Wings trending downward. Pistons, I think, trending upward. I think there was a moment there when Cade went down where there was some panic. Truthfully, myself, I can sit here and say I wasn't sure what now for the Pistons, because without a primary scorer, and we know they even struggle getting secondary scoring at times, you just wonder where were the points going to come from. And against even better teams now, Pistons proving themselves. So it's really good to see. And I talked about the front court dominance, Jalen Duren, scoring, rebounding, interior defense, controlling the game physically, anchoring it at both ends. And he's not a guy that's going to give you 40 every night, but he's a walking double-double. He's controlling the paint. Their role players are stepping up. You had Duncan Robinson, Tobias Harris in double figures yesterday. So you're getting the secondary pieces. Yeah, don't know. I think we all panicked a little bit, and the panic's not over. They're not out of the woods. I mean, I think they've stacked wins. They've proven that they can win without Cade. They can hang in there, but they don't want to go into the playoffs without him. They need Cade Cunningham back if they're going to make some kind of title run. So when looking at the bigger picture for the Pistons, I mean, no, we never want to be without our MVP, and the Pistons would love to have him back as soon as they can. But is this happening at the perfect time? Is it the perfect storm so that the Pistons can get back to what they do best and then start to develop the second score? And is that now Daniss Jenkins? So let me know, guys, is this the perfect storm for the Pistons? Getting back to their defensive identity, working with their depth, back to the system, building confidence. Obviously, they know now they won't collapse without their star. Can they continue to evolve? And that's really the biggest thing. And will the evolution come to a head as they head into the playoffs. Hopefully with Cade coming back, hopefully he can get a couple games under his belt before the playoffs begin so that they are really rolling when this time hits. I mean, the Pistons, I don't think they're not just surviving without Cade. I think they're maybe even discovering who they really are, or proving who they really are, so that when Cade comes back, it's a well-oiled machine. So let me know what you guys think. Is this a good sign for the Pistons? Can they continue to roll? Again, they hold the top spot in the Eastern Conference and have continued to do so even through this Cade injury. Let's pull up the current standings right now. Right now in the Eastern Conference, of course, Pistons with 52 wins on the season. They've clinched a playoff spot, the first team in the East to do that. The Boston Celtics are 5 games now behind the Pistons. New York 5.5, Cleveland 8 games, and then there's everybody else. In the 8th seed right now is the Orlando Magic, and just ahead of them, the Philadelphia 76ers. Behind them, the Miami Heat and Charlotte Hornets. And that's really it as far as who's competing for the playoff spot. So that's who the Pistons could have in the first round if everything kind of holds true. Who would you guys like to see? Would you rather see the Pistons play Philly, Orlando, Miami, or Charlotte? Those look like the 4 teams that ultimately could be the matchup there, depending on how some things shake out. And again, this NBA season also winding down quickly. 11 games remaining for the Pistons as well. 11 games for the Wings, 11 games for the Pistons. They're at home for the next 2. The Pistons are against Atlanta and New Orleans. So 2 more winnable games. I think it'd be good for the Pistons to get those games under their belt as well, because again, they could then go on the road for some more difficult matchups. Minnesota, Oklahoma City, back home for Toronto and Minnesota, then again on the road for Philly, Orlando, home for Milwaukee, and then on the road to finish the season at Charlotte and at Indiana. It'll be interesting to see if that game for Charlotte means anything at the end of the year and what that could mean for the Pistons. Do they have the number 1 seed wrapped up at that point? Are they working Cade back in? Maybe giving him limited minutes just to kind of get his legs back underneath him. So there's a lot of things ahead of the Pistons, but I think they need to continue to stack wins right now so that at the end of the year, they're not pushing to maintain that number 1 seed. They want to lock this thing up. Don't Know says, give me Philly in round 1. All right, I can feel that. I think you're right. I think that also could be the best play for them. Potentially Orlando. I don't know that I'd want to face Charlotte. If Charlotte's able to sneak in, they are just like very 3-point heavy. And I don't want Detroit getting into a 3-point shooting battle with any team at all. I think that plays against what the Pistons do best. So I would say if we can avoid Charlotte, if they miss the playoffs or they don't get the 8th seed, that would be the one team I would say to avoid. So what do you guys think? Have you been watching Pistons without Cade? What do you think? Can they maintain this? What do you think of Daniss Jenkins' performance yesterday? Love to hear from you guys. Dwayne says yes, because we 8-2 without Cade, but it's team, not one player, so we can do it. I would love to get Cade back in the first round if possible. 8-2 without Cade, that's one heck of a number. It's incredible that they can maintain that level of play without their superstar. But it's almost like they go back to their system. They go back to what works. There's nothing wrong with that. Dwayne, I appreciate you being a part of the chat. Thanks, buddy. He also said one more day until Detroit Tigers baseball. Well, let's swing it over there. Let's talk a little Tigers, because we are getting very close to opening day. And as we get closer to opening day, Tigers now have to round and form their opening day roster, which we got word today will include young star Kevin McGonigal. The Tigers, of course, finalizing the roster during this time. And now let's let that sink in. A 21-year-old has now forced the organization's hand, and he's going to be an opening day shortstop for the Detroit Tigers. It's not a nice story. It's not a give a kid the shot situation. I think McGonigal earned this. He dominated high A and double A last year. Arizona Fall League MVP, had absurd numbers. He's carried that momentum into spring training, and although his numbers, the actual physical numbers themselves have dropped off a little bit, I think he's shown he has elite plate discipline, great pop. I think he answered the biggest question was really his defense. He's made several great plays, web gem type plays to where the Tigers organization is confident that as just everyday shortstop, he can step in and not create a defensive liability. But more than anything, his patience at the plate, I think, is what they love the most. He's, I think, led the team in walks in the spring so far, and that's what the Tigers really, really need in this lineup is patient hitting, patience at the plate. McGonigal spent a lot of time working with Alan Trammell, so footwork, positioning, consistency at shortstop, those kind of things rounding into form. And it seems those kind of things are why this move seems to hit a little bit different. Now, if McGonigal, and as we expect, he'll be the opening day shortstop, you can now sort of shift some things around. It creates a little bit of an effect on the rest of your roster. So Javi Baez, Zach McKinstry, they now shift into more utility roles, which I think helps the roster overall. Lineup gets younger, so that's obviously good. More athletic, more flexible. You're adding already a pure hitter to the lineup, which you needed already. And I think that will pressure the other guys in your lineup to play better. Guys like Riley Green, who had a strikeout problem last year, has come out and said he's got to be better. He's got to refocus for this year. And when you have a young kid coming up showing that he's going to push the rest of your lineup, I think it causes the other guys to really put that in perspective and hopefully will make a difference. But again, looking at the bigger picture, does this tell you that the Tigers are pushing all their chips in here for 2026? We know what they did with their pitching staff. They're going to have a top 5 pitching staff when all's said and done. And now they're starting to show that they're willing to put the right bats in place to hopefully really make a push for this. You got Tariq Skubal in a win now window. You've added veteran pitching. You're now saying that we're not going to wait on prospects. We're going to roll out our best players no matter how old they are, who they are. We don't care about service time. We don't care about financials. It seemed like the organization ignored all of it. Because truthfully, I think McGonigal gives the Tigers a better chance to win in 2026. And they saw it, and they're going to put it into place. I mean, there's a lot of crazy comparisons already being made for this kid. Chase Utley, Alex Bregman. I mean, he's got the elite hitting tools. He seems to have an approach that's advanced for his age. So the potential there is through the roof. And if he's not even his final version yet, it's scary to think where he could go. And then what does this do for the rest of the Tiger lineup? So what does this mean for the season? I think the Tigers just got deeper. Their infield a little bit more dynamic. There's obviously excitement now built around the organization. People are going to want to see this lineup, see this young kid play. I think they raised the ceiling in the AL Central. And I really believe they're a legitimate contender, not only in the division, but I think they are a contender for the World Series. I think they can make a push. I think their pitching speaks for itself. If they can get patience at the plate and timely hitting, I really believe this team is a title contender in 2026. Let me know what you guys think. Believe in this future? Is that future? Is the name Kevin McGonigal? Let me know what you guys think, Tigers fans. I'd love to hear from you. MCG homered his way into the lineup. That's right. Starting off with that Dominican home run, that really kind of put him over the top, right? I mean, that was like a moment. Really big for him. What's up, Jody? Good to see you. It's been a little while. Good to see you here in the chat. Happy to have you, Jody. If you guys haven't already, make sure to slap the like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. Thank you so much for being a part of the live today. We're going to get into our main topic here in just a little bit. We're going to hit on Lions really hard. So stick around, and we're going to have a fun topic at the end of the live. We're going to jump into our Detroit sports time machine. So stick around for that. See Gaz in the house. What's up, brother? Just 2 years ago, it was a no-brainer. The Lions and Wings were the two teams closest to contending. Now, would you say it's the Tigers and Pistons? Wild. Love you, bro. Appreciate you, man. Answer your question. I agree with you 100%. Right now, trending up are Tigers and Pistons. I mean, I feel most confident in the Pistons and what they're doing right now. Now, we ebb and flow, right? And obviously, with me making content every day, you kind of ebb and flow with each win. As you get towards the end of the season, these games mean more and more. So a victory for the Pistons means so much. A loss for the Wings also means so much, right? So you're trying not to overblow this loss to Ottawa tonight, kind of knowing what the trajectory was, kind of seeing what the Red Wings team is. Then you look at the Pistons situation, and there was panic about the Cade Cunningham injury, but it seems like the Pistons have figured it out. They've used their system to round it back into form. So I agree with you, brother. I think it is Tigers and Pistons that you have the most confidence in. After that, I'd say it's Lions and then Wings. I hate to say it. I don't like putting the Wings at the bottom of the barrel, but until you show me that you can win consistently late in the year in March, make the playoffs, make a run at it, they're at the bottom of the totem pole. Don't Know says, before I slapped that like button, I had a pile of dishes. Since hitting it, my wife has started washing them, and it just keeps giving me dirty looks. Hit that button and someone else might do yours too. Yeah. Quality every time, Don't Know. That's good stuff. It's tough to not look back in the last 3 years of the Wings collapses, man. It's like it's meant to be. It is. I don't know if it's a curse sort of thing. Organizationally, I thought maybe it was the goaltender thing. I mean, injuries play a little part in what was been happening, and losing Rasmussen, losing, Larkin at the wrong time. I mean, that was a big deal, but I just, at a certain point, and I even like the moves that they made at the deadline. I like Justin Falk. Adding Perron, it's not the ultimate scoring option, but it was a guy you're familiar with who could give you a little bit of scoring, and it's not enough. None of this is enough. It's just like you said, an expected occurrence now. Appreciate you, Don. Thanks for being a part of this. It's a great show. Thank you, buddy. Well, let's jump over. I think we all are here for a certain reason because there's a lot of things happening in Liontown. So why don't we switch gears and get into our main topic of the day? It's the main topic of the day. No, I don't know why I did that, but you get it. Let's talk some Lions. I think the first thing we need to get into before I dive too heavy into anything else is the Brad Holmes presser. It wasn't really a presser. Today he spoke to the Lions Collective podcast, which is a group of content creators that have formed a nice little organization, and they have access to some parts of the Lions organization, which gave them an interview with Brad Holmes. So obviously a lot of the interview centered around analyzing the start of free agency and all the moves that have been made so far. So I think I want to just quote a few things that came out of that interview. Now I'm pulling this from Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated. This is an article written by Christian Boer. And the biggest question to Brad Holmes was basically, what was the plan here in free agency? Lions have been busy in free agency, but many would say, not as aggressive as they'd want them to be. Not many high-profile splashes, let's put it that way. But the team has made double-digit additions, over 11 free agents that they had signed. Only one of them got a multi-year deal, the center 3-year for Cade Mays. Other than that, they kind of focused on adding players to 1-year prove-it contracts. And the question was formed to Holmes that with $23 million in cap space, what ultimately was the plan? Well, Holmes told the collection of reporters that he and the franchise are still actively looking for players to add ahead of the start of offseason workouts and the drafts. Holmes noted that the team may not sign anybody ahead of the draft, but he's actively having conversations with agents and pursuing potential additions. This process will continue beyond the draft. So the word from the media portion of the Lions said that they were done in free agency. Now that can mean a lot of things. When you say done, it could just mean done with the wave of free agency. But I think what Holmes is getting at here is that they may look at after the draft when the roster starts to take shape and you have maybe some veterans who don't want to be a part of the spring workouts or, the OTAs. Well, you could have some of those guys then sort of come out of the woodworks. I think that's what Brad Holmes is talking about. So it won't be a splashy move, but I think it'll be maybe another veteran addition here or there that shapes this roster. Dwayne says, I like the signing that Brad and staff have been doing. They're not breaking the bank either. That's right. That's kind of been the process so far. Millicent says, Brad did an excellent job of reminding fans that it's business that operates on a budget. It's not as black and white as fans see it. So, yeah. So, I mean, that was asked to him. And the quote is, this is from Brad. This is right from the Crunch Time Sports. We know what kind of financial, let me say this the right way. So he says, we know what kind of financial restraints we were in for what we were trying to do with these extensions that we have upcoming. So what I take from that is that the extensions are truly is what is impacting the offseason approach. They have committed to themselves that they will pay their successful draft picks. The draft class of 2023 is extension eligible this offseason. That group of players includes Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. As a result, there could be some hefty money hitting the Lions books in future years, which could come sooner than later. This is directly from this same Sports Illustrated article by the Detroit Lions website here. And again, Christian Boer, thank you very much. Goes on to say, with several high-profile players already receiving extensions, the Lions will have to be smart with their maneuvers to ensure they can pay all these players. The general manager noted that big extensions could be coming and the process could start as soon as this offseason. So, I'm pausing as I read through this again. That's not the first time I've seen this article, but I've for the last 2 hours, I've been sort of like absorbing what Brad Holmes said. And we know already what happened. We know the signings they've made. And now he's come out and said, at least from the Lions' perspective, why they're not being more aggressive in free agency, not more aggressive this offseason. They're telling you that they are going to pay their eligible extension players either this offseason or very soon. So Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, and Brian Branch. Now, he did not say those players specifically. Brad Holmes did not mention those guys, but that's the assumption based on what was said in that interview. Robert says, how you doing, Robert? Good to see you, buddy. Says, Holmes made a good point. Why pay more expensive free agents over your good, cheaper draft picks? Well, so let me try to look at this from both sides, Robert. I guess I'll try to, that's what I've always done. I'm going to try and do this again because I don't want to lean one way or another. On the positive end of this, Brad Holmes and the Lions organization has come out and said what their plan was, and they've stuck to that plan. They've drafted, developed, and then rewarded the players that have worked from that system. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Kirby Joseph, the most recent one. Now, in drafting so well, you then are able to fill holes through the draft with impact players. And those impact players are on limited rookie deals as they're performing early on in their careers. The more success you have in the draft, the more opportunity you're going to have to extend those players and sign those big contracts. The more you do that, the more it is going to eat into your cap number and your overall percentage of what you're able to spend in the offseason. The positive of that is you're continuing to breed players if you continue to draft well. On the opposite side of that, it limits the amount of money that you can use in the offseason because you know you have to dedicate so much of that salary cap number to those players. And you're also banking on the fact that those players, number one, continue the success that they've had in the league. They remain healthy. And they remain productive throughout that contract. But it's also extremely limited what they've been able to do in free agency, because in their minds, all of that money is already tied up. They've already spent it, is what Brad Holmes is saying. In their mind, that money isn't there. Is that the smartest move? And I think what it goes back to, and he said this during the interview, was that with those big splash moves, comes the risk, right? It comes the risk of not being able to sustain winning for a short period of time if a particular move doesn't pay off. You look at organizations like the Eagles, like the Chiefs, I mean, even the Patriots, recent winners of the Super Bowl that have had ebbs and flows. And that's part of what being a true winning organization is. But what I always go back to with this Lions organization is that they haven't won a Super Bowl, guys. They haven't won a Super Bowl. Brad Holmes has not won a Super Bowl. The Lions organization hasn't won a Super Bowl. And they're acting like they have. That's my only issue with this whole thing. This is my only problem. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying the way that they've gone about it this offseason is wrong, or that they won't have a good season this year. They're probably going to put out a decent roster based on what their schedule says. They'll probably still get 9, 10, 11 wins, and they might even make the playoffs. But did they do everything possible this offseason to build a Super Bowl winner? I don't think that's the case. I'm not saying that's wrong, but I can't sit here and confidently say, even after this interview and hearing Brad Holmes' word, like they're not going for it. They're not going for it, guys. And that's okay. That's okay. Like, you're okay. You're allowed to be okay with that. But don't, in hearing the words today and seeing it on the screen, can you really sit there and tell me this organization is going for a Super Bowl? Like, they're going for it. Like, this team is beelining for a Super Bowl. The words out of your GM, don't even say it. He doesn't even say the word Super Bowl anymore. He doesn't say it. Sustained success. That was the phrase. Sustained success. And I want sustained success too. I want that too. I want them to have sustained success, but I want them to win a Super Bowl. That's what I want. If I'm wrong for that, then you can stop watching me as a content creator. If that makes you angry at me because I'm not happy with them not going for it, then so be it. I'm not mad at the Lions. Because I'm not going to let that eat at me like it had in past weeks. They're just going to do what they're going to do. And although paying Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell and Sam Laporta and Brian Branch, I'm not saying you shouldn't think about signing those guys, extending those guys. I think Jack Campbell's a no-brainer. You could certainly make an argument Jahmyr Gibbs might be a no-brainer, but do you pay running backs that amount of money? Sam Laporta has an injury history. Brian Branch now has an injury history. Do you have to pay all those guys? Do you have to, Brad? You have to? He acts like you have to. I guess that's the thing. Don't know. That's the other side of this, because you say, I can't think of a high-profile signing that was made that I would have rather had Brad make. There could be one, but I can't think of any. There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of and you can't just throw your hat into every bucket. I'm not crazy. And if you've spent time with me here and don't know you have, obviously a lot of people in the chat have, I didn't push the Lions to make the big splash for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby last offseason. But I think now that's the same thing, Smokey, and that's what we're talking about. What free agent did you want that was worth losing Gibbs, Branch, Laporta, and Campbell? The salary cap. Okay, so Smokey, what I would respond to you with, I guess, is how do the Eagles win Super Bowls? How do the Patriots win Super Bowls? How do the Chiefs win Super Bowls? And I'm not saying you don't sign Gibbs, Campbell, Laporta, and Branch. I'm not saying you just dismiss them. But listen, if you want me to name one player, guys, this offseason, I would have, if the price is what it was for Max Crosby, if it was only a first round pick and maybe a player or a first round and a second round next year, I would have made that move for Max this offseason. And I know he's hurt a little bit, but that's right up the Lions' MO. So don't make that excuse. The Eagles don't sign free agents. They didn't sign Smokey. You're not looking at this right. Guys, I'm just looking up. What I'm doing is looking up some of the big name signings over the last couple years. I mean, if you're asking me this offseason, what I would have done is I would have made a stronger play. What I do like, let's go back to this. What I do like, I like the center, Cade Mays. I'm okay with what they did at center, and I think that they're doing what was available to them to make the offensive line what they need to make it. That's what I'm saying, Brian. I don't, Smokey, I don't think you really look too deep into this. They signed Zach Bond. They signed the running back. They signed the other defensive player last year, some other defensive pieces. So I don't think that's the case. I'm not saying the Lions have to be the Eagles. I think that's the problem, right? We get into these discussions and everybody goes, what would you do? Again, I would have made the play for Max Crosby. My computer's being funny. That's good. Yeah, that Bond signing, that was huge for them. I mean, that was a budget signing. I mean, that was a good hit for them. Yeah, and that's it, Millicent. I mean, I think for every team, it's a little bit different, right? You can't skin a cat the same way. For instance, the Seattle Seahawks, right? A lot of their impact came from their secondary, their defensive backfield. So then what happens is a lot of teams, and that's kind of what I think the Lions started to look for as they made these budget moves was, okay, we need to now build depth in our secondary to be able to compete. Jalen Phillips. There's the other name I could not get into my head. Jalen Phillips. The Eagles made another move for Jalen Phillips last year, which I thought, give or take, it didn't end up paying off for the Eagles, but they're not afraid to make the move. And again, to say the salary cap is real, yes, it is real to a certain extent. But again, what I'll go back to is Brad Holmes and the Lions only restructured one contract this year. They only cleared up enough money so that they could do what their plan is. They could have cleared up more money and made additional moves. And again, I'm not saying you go out and make every move. Like, for instance, when we talked about if you weren't going to get Cade Mays, the Linderbaum sweepstakes, right? Well, obviously the Lions weren't going to go above and beyond and pay what he ended up getting. But the fact is that the Lions are never, ever going to be in that discussion is sort of my point. And I guess without getting too big with this, I mean, my point of this is in trying to take away the things from what was said out of this Brad Holmes presser, which really wasn't a presser, it was more of an interview sort of thing. They also talked about the edge position. Obviously, with the minor additions with DJ Wanham, Peyton Turner, you know, trying to find another premium contributor to this defensive line opposite Aiden Hutchinson. And Holmes addressed this, noting that the edge position is among the most valuable in the league, and as a result, players cost a premium. When the team committed to early contracts with Cade Mays, Larry Borum, GM admitted that those moves took them out of the running for some of the top edge free agents. Took them out of the running for some top edge free agents. So I guess that's what I go back to. It's like, well, Holmes is admitting it took them out of the running because they weren't willing to clear more cap space. And he keeps talking about these financial constraints, which again goes back to them wanting to pay all the players that they're drafting. And so I guess what it ultimately goes back to is it's going to put all the onus on this year's draft. I mean, any holes that they still have left to fill, which I think would still be across the defensive line, linebacker, primarily defensively. They're still looking for a tackle. We know that on the offensive line. You know, there's a lot of talk out there that Larry Borum is potentially the tackle, especially if they can't get the draft pick at 17. So it just puts so much emphasis now back on the draft where, okay, if this is going to be your system, if this is what you're telling us it's going to be, and I'm not here to argue it. Obviously I don't run the team. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I'm going to continue to hopefully root for it. And I want them to win a Super Bowl. But it's putting now all the chips back in the drafting basket. So they have to hit early impact players that now contribute from day one. I mean, they need defensive line starters day one on top of an offensive lineman day one. Yeah, that's it. Don't worry. We have Peyton Turner. That's my concern. That's really my concern. I mean, there's some other veteran edge rushers out there that they could go get still that might make people feel a little bit better about where they're at. That's a good point, Jay Brick. I mean, when we get into the draft discussion, I mean, what do they do now at 17? I mean, I think the consensus would still be to try and find the tackle, the offensive lineman, but there's still a lot of need for defensive line help. So depending on what shapes up in front of them in the draft, you know, what do they do? Yeah, Brian, I mean, I think that's kind of the question, right? Is like, what is that Turner pickup? I mean, it's very low risk with a possible high reward. Anything you get out of them, I guess, is a reward based on what you're paying for some of these contracts. All of these contracts they signed outside of Cade Mays, they're all 1-year prove-it deals. They're all low risk, high reward, all depth pieces. I mean, like you said, Cade Mays is your starter at center. I think Roger McCreary is maybe the next best player that you could say will push for maybe a starting role at that nickel position. But outside of that, I just didn't see it. And guys, listen, I'm not trying to doom and gloom it. I had this conversation last week because anytime I start to criticize the team, again, you get these guys coming out of the woodworks. I just don't know how you can make any sort of argument, even if your argument back to me is, well, who would you have taken? Well, I don't like Max Crosby. I wouldn't have gone after him. Well, fine. Then I'm just supposed to be then satisfied with what they did. I'm just happy with the 11 free agents that they signed that give me no indication that they're pushing towards a Super Bowl. That's just the way I feel. I mean, Broski Bear, you bring up a good point. Again, when we look at the 23 draft class, should they re-sign Laporta? Should they extend Laporta? Should they extend Branch? Should they really do that? You don't have to. And Laporta, he had a great rookie year, but hasn't been that same player, whether that be injuries and other surrounding. I mean, you can make a lot of arguments, but does that mean you have to reset the tight end market with him? I like Sam Laporta, but that doesn't mean you have to re-sign him. I mean, you're right, Robert. They did come out and say that. They want to run stuff and allow their linebackers, I guess, to make a bunch of plays. Well, I think they're still short linebackers then. If that's the plan, then they need more linebackers. Yeah, Turner with no guaranteed money. That's what I mean. It's zero risk. There's no risk there. If you get anything out of them, it's all gravy. I'm not mad at it as just depth, as just it is what it is. But when you don't have anything else to lean on, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Peyton Turner. Brian says, I'm almost 47. I'm more mad now about what this team is than I've ever been because of the expectation given by the new regime. I think Brian, that's a great point. And I think that's where I come from with a lot of this is, from 2023 and I hate to say it again, I'm sorry, Don't Know Grit, that NFC Championship game, they were a half away from the Super Bowl. And they've regressed every single year. The roster has regressed every single year. And they can continue to draft well, but you're still going to be in, I feel like, the same position every year. And if Lions fans, if you're comfortable at 9-8, 10-7, sniffing the playoffs every year, wild card exits, if you're happy with that, if you are good with that, then more power to you as a fan. I'm not telling you how to fan. If you love that and that satisfies you as a Detroit Lions fan, then you know what? Good for you. I'm happy for you. I really am. I'm not judging that. I want a Super Bowl. That's what I want. Ain't that the truth, broski? Yeah, I don't mind that. Great. And actually, that's a good point. As we get a little closer to the draft, number one, I'm going to have a couple mock drafts coming out over the next couple weeks, but we're going to bring in Don't Know Grit for our draft show, which will take place that first Thursday of the draft. So definitely come back and see us. We'll start to plan for that in the future. Yeah, that's it, bud. I mean, that's it. They're hoping for the best. A guy with injury history, instead of plugging in a piece that could take you over the edge. No pun intended. Christian Izzy, third linebacker. Okay, versatility there. I like that. Millicent says, fans, regardless of the team, have to remember the human element to this game. All of these players have free will and their own needs and desires. An available player has to want to be here. You're right. I think Max Crosby would have wanted to be here. He said that. He actually came out and said that. Again, I hate to focus on Max Crosby, right? Because he wasn't the only move. I like Jalen Phillips when he was available last year. They didn't make that play. Montez Sweat when he was available year before at the trade deadline, and they didn't. Remember, they went and signed the edge that they then didn't bring back. And they bargain hunted for him as well, and that didn't work out. Rodrigo got us. That's it. I love Malcolm Rodriguez. I'm glad they signed him back. I think he's got potential. He's a great special teams player. So at the very least, you're bringing him back for that. But I don't know if he's your difference-making linebacker. Big Z. There it is. Don't know. Sorry. Yeah, Big Z. That's right. Smokey, 15-2 and a divisional round loss is a regression. When you go to the NFC Championship game and then you can't win a playoff game the next year, I really don't care what your record was. That kind of goes back to what I'm saying. If you, and I'm this isn't a judgment statement, please. And I welcome the criticism. It's okay. But I'm not okay with 15-2 in a playoff loss. I don't want that. I don't want that. It's, to me, you might as well go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. 15-2 in a division round loss is a regression. Now, you could argue if Hutch doesn't go out and some other things, injuries, I mean, a lot of different things could have happened that year, but it didn't. It played out the way it did. They lost in the divisional round. I wish it was different. But they did. It's just the way it is. And then they completely, 9-8 is a regression. So if that number is what is in your head, then it is what it is. They lost because everybody was hurt. Then build better depth. And if you're telling me that this is them building better depth, all right, let's see if it pays off for them. I don't think it will. Smokey, I'm a huge Lions fan, brother. I want them to win. I really want them to win. I don't pray for their downfall. I want all the players that they got to work out. I hope it does. I'll be rooting for it. I really will. That's it, Brian. Win a Lombardi. Go. I don't. That's the thing, Smokey. They could go 17-0, but if you lose in the first round of the playoffs, then it is what it is, man. And look, the organizations, believe me, I know this. I know this for a fact. The organization's very happy. They sold out of their season tickets yet again, very early in March. Just like you said, it's March. Well, guess what? They sold out their season tickets because money. And as long as that continues to happen, I don't know that there ever is truly like like what's forcing their hand to go after it. Sheila Ford Hamp and the Ford family, I'm sure, is plenty happy to go 9-8 and have every home game sold out. The merch is selling, the new jerseys be selling. You got Brad Holmes wearing a Billion shirt. That's all good. It's all good until it's not anymore. No one remembers the 07. Well, yeah, I get your point, Robert. 100%. I get it. Thanks, Brian. Rod Wood did his job. Now we need Brad to do his. And that's it. Look, I'm not the GM of the team. I'm not pulling the trigger on these things. If Lions miss the playoffs this season, will Dan Campbell be on the hot seat, says Broski Bear. Ooh. I don't know. It would depend on how bad. Like, just missing the playoffs, and if injuries and all that stuff, weird stuff happen again, then Lions world likes to build in those excuses to where I don't think he will be on the hot seat. Now, if they completely fumble the ball this year, no pun intended, and they miss the playoffs and they really regress, then maybe. So don't agree. I love the idea of what they were going for with that. And I think when that idea came into play, the organization looked like they were heading towards a Super Bowl. Now I feel like they look toward like they're heading the opposite direction. So to have that villain shirt on, to me, carries a different message. But the waiting list for first generation season tickets is over 15,000 people deep. I've been on the waiting list for 3 years. All of my tickets are purchased in the resale market. I mean, that's it. And that's for years now, right? So, it is what it is. I can't, again, I'm not the GM and I don't own the team. And if they are happy with what's going on, then this might just be part of the process. I mean, for Brad Holmes to bring up financial constraints, I hate hearing that word, financial constraints. So are financial constraints going to stop us from winning a Super Bowl? I guess. How do all the other teams win a Super Bowl? I have no idea. How do they do it? I guess the Eagles have gone bankrupt 16 times that I've never seen it. Or the Chiefs. Man. How do they do it? I don't know. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, don't know. Wear it up. Proudly. And again, proudly a Lions fan. Doesn't really sound like it at the moment, does it? No, I don't know. I guess what it was is I wrapped my mind around trying to be more positive about what was happening, or like trying to like look at it from a more positive perspective. And it's not done. Like I said last week, and I hold to that. The draft is going to tell us a big story. If they hit well in the draft and they end up being impact players that make the difference that they need, then all of this could work itself out. But I just don't see that yet. And I think it puts a ton of pressure on what this draft has to be now. Broski says, how long before the Lions find their franchise quarterback of the future? Don't you think it would be a good idea to have the quarterback sit behind Goff for a season or two? I think that's what they thought they had with Hendon Hooker. We know how that ended up working out. You know, I think there's a couple sides of that, Broski. I think the organization is so much infatuated with Jared Goff that they don't think they need to look at a quarterback of the future just yet. Now, let's see what they do in the draft. Maybe they find somebody to build behind him a little bit. I don't know who that guy's going to be. I don't see one yet, but who knows? I would say you still have a good few years with Jared Goff to where you can make some things happen, but it is a conversation. Jay Brick says Chiefs have the ref on their side. I think they probably do now, but they had to get there. You know, you build up that kind of goodwill. John, that's a good point. A lot of people have said that recently. Maybe Brad is just a good scout, not necessarily a true GM. I don't know. I don't know if I can support that one way or another. I think he definitely is a good scout. I think he drafts well. You know, he hasn't brought the team a Super Bowl. That's the only thing I can say with certainty. That's it. Don't know. And I appreciate, I guess, you saying that and seeing that. I mean, I could sit here and like have an agenda and come at you with all negative and just lean there and like try to lean into it, or lean positive and lean into that, you know, and like make it feel one way or another every time I sit up here. But the truth is I go through the ebbs and flows of the emotion of this almost daily. I mean, I was reading through this 15 different times today, trying to like wrap my head around how I felt about it. And I kind of go back and forth. Brad got a check at halftime of the San Francisco game. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people getting after Brad Holmes this offseason. I mean, there's just, I think because of the built up goodwill of this regime from 2021 to this point, obviously 23 bring kind of the crux of that, where they were just a second away from a Super Bowl. And it felt like the next year, like you said earlier, at 15-2, I was happy with that record and things look like, oh my gosh, they're taking over the world. But the flaws came out when the injuries hit. Your quarterback isn't going to go win you a divisional playoff game if you don't have the pieces around him in place. So then you go, okay, well, what are those pieces we got to put into place to then get there? And from that point, I haven't seen where they've done that. They've lost the pieces. They've lost those pieces and they haven't replaced them. So if the argument to throw back at me is always going to be, well, who would you have gone and got? Who's it going to be? Well, not those guys. I don't know. It certainly, the plan isn't working yet. I don't know how he worked that McCreary deal out, to be honest with you. That is the one thing where I will say, I don't want to kill Brad all day long, but the one thing I'll give him credit for is that when they do hook onto a player, he's got this weird ability to negotiate these amazing contracts. And it's only with these like guys that need to prove themselves. It's almost like he has this innate ability to have some sort of like motivating conversation to say, well, come to the Lions. You're going to prove yourself. You're going to get an opportunity. It doesn't matter what we pay you because we know you're not going to re-sign here next year, but you're going to get that multi-year deal that the Lions would never give you. You know, I don't know. I don't like that strategy. Like where's the piece where you go get a free agent, he comes here, he flourishes, and then you say, okay, that was great. Now bring us a Super Bowl. Let's hang on to that guy. They just won't do it. They won't do it. Johnny G in the house. Let's flip it over. We're just over an hour. I got a great topic I want to get into today. Every live now moving forward, at least where we have time for it, I'm going to introduce a new segment. I will eventually have a nice transition slide for this, like with the other things, but we'll get there. But today I'm going to introduce a new segment. This week, Johnny Gaz on Facebook came out with a short talking about the Detroit Sports Time Machine. And the cool thing about the Detroit Sports Time Machine is that we are able to get into this time machine, go back in time, and adjust or change the fate of some of those Detroit sports moments that maybe didn't go in our favor. So the one that I had brought up this week was the 2015 wild card matchup in Dallas with the flag pickup on Anthony Hitchens. We all remember that one. Flag was thrown, then picked up. Des Bryant runs out on the field without his helmet on. They pick up the flag. Lions lose. Obviously, you know, the rest is history. Well, in that one, we were able to go back in our time machine and make sure that that flag doesn't get picked up. We talked about what that could have meant for the Lions, not only that season, but long term. So we're going to get back into our time machine today. But this time, it's going to center around the Detroit Pistons. It's right, don't agree. It's time to squeeze the wiener. And hey, guess what? Give it up. We've had the camera on the whole time today. No camera outages, so we like that. We like that when the tech works. And again, if you haven't already, guys, make sure to hit the like button. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, Johnny Gaz Live. Today we talked heavy Lions, but we always go around the D, talk Detroit sports. We hit heavy on the Pistons. Fortunately, the Red Wings lost today. The Tigers building their lineup, so we got into a ton of Detroit sports today. We do that every single live here. But our last topic of the day, let's get into our Detroit sports time machine. Let's fire it up. Because today we're going back to one of the most infinite what-ifs in Detroit sports history. The 2003 NBA draft. So let's jump in that time machine. Let's buzz up and buzz back down on the 2003 NBA draft. With the second overall pick in the 2003 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons select Darko Milicic. Yes, you remember that. But also sitting on the board at that same time was a player named Carmelo Anthony, who ended up being drafted after Darko Milicic in that same 2003 NBA draft. So let's set the scene with this. The Pistons were not your typical lottery team. They were already very good. They had a 50-win squad from the year before. Chauncey Billups at the point guard, Richard Hamilton, Ben Wallace, young Tayshaun Prince. So they weren't looking for a savior in that draft, but an additional piece to help build what was hopefully going to be a championship team. So why did the Pistons take Darko? Let's go back. And if you remember, again, based on the team composition, GM Joe Dumars was looking for the center of the future. That was sort of the wave of the NBA at the time, was looking at some of these bigger Euro stars that could handle the basketball, shoot the rock, do things that, you know, a 7-footer wouldn't typically do. And Darko reportedly had one of the greatest private workout sessions the league had ever seen. He was 7'1", was described as a unicorn. Mobility, touch, skill. They were throwing around comparisons to Wilt Chamberlain. That's amazing to think about. But that was really the key. It was the fit over the talent. They already had Tayshaun Prince at small forward. They needed front court depth. And most importantly, they thought, at least I believe, they thought Carmelo would come in and demand the basketball. He was more of a character than what Darko Milicic presented. And on a veteran team built on defense and chemistry, bringing in Carmelo was sort of seen as a risk. So the draft consensus that year, obviously LeBron James, clear number one. And Darko, if you look back at it, was widely viewed as the number two. So Melo, even after winning a title at Syracuse, was seen more of a scorer rather than a system fit kind of guy. And we know what happened from there. The Pistons ends up drafting Darko. He does not have the impact that they expected. And based on what the Pistons already had in their lineup, they were building towards a championship. They end up adding Rasheed Wallace as that kind of missing piece towards the end of the year at the trade deadline, and we know what happened. Pistons win the 04 title. They just missed on the 05 title, but they have a string of almost a decade worth of time where they were winning, and they won a championship with that 04 team with Darko basically as a bench piece, as a celebratory cigar. If you remember, they brought him in a lot of times at the end of games when it was out of hand, and it would be looked at like that celebratory piece. But let's now change history. Let's get in our time machine, and let's have the Pistons not draft Darko Milicic, but with the second pick in the 2003 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons select Carmelo Anthony. So the question is to you guys, would the Pistons still have won an NBA title in 04 if they had drafted Carmelo Anthony versus Darko Milicic? Think about all the things that would have been different if that would have happened. Is it true that Carmelo would have demanded floor time, demanded the basketball? Would that have affected the rhythm, the consistency, the team-based approach the Pistons have been building for? The roster at that time? Would that have taken away the need to go get a guy like Rasheed Wallace? And that chemistry that was built, would that all have gone away if Carmelo was the pick? The 04 team was built on defense, selflessness, no true superstar ego. Well, would that have shifted if Carmelo had been on the team? Would he have bought into that grinded out identity? Because if he doesn't, that championship may have never happened. But let's say it does work. Let's do this on the flip side. Now you're looking at a championship core that is even extended further, plus a young superstar scorer developing inside of that core. I mean, if you think about one of the things that Detroit struggled with sometimes, it was putting the ball in the basket. They would win games in the 70s, holding teams under 70 points in certain cases, in certain stretches. But with Carmelo on that team with an additional true scorer, they could have been a dynasty, a dominant dynasty. Multiple championships, completely different, and a completely different legacy for this franchise overall. It's incredible to think about what the difference could have been. But what was the reality? Darko barely contributed to the Pistons. Melo becomes a Hall of Fame level talent. And Detroit didn't Detroit didn't only pass on Melo, they passed on Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, all in that same draft. Former GM Joe Dumars later called this a swing and a miss. So he almost admits that the direction they took was not the right direction. So again, my question for you guys is, would the Detroit Pistons have won the 04 championship with Melo? And what would that have looked like moving forward? Or would Melo have actually broken that team? And would that have been sort of the start of the downfall for that Pistons team before they even get to the 04 championship? It's a really interesting topic. That's why I love the Detroit Sports Time Machine. I'd love if you jump in it with me and let me know your thoughts. OMFG Darko. D Wade drafted after Darko. It's amazing the talent that was taken after Darko. It's incredible. I mean, you could make the argument for Carmelo, obviously here, but Bosh, same thing. I mean, think about if the Pistons had taken Bosh. But remember, back then, Bosh was not in the mix with those other players. I mean, he was talked about as a good prospect, but he wasn't talked about like Darko was or like Melo had been. I remember he won the championship with Syracuse and everything that came along with that. So a lot of the hype was around those guys. Obviously, LeBron being the feature piece of that draft, but Pistons weren't involved in that. That was going to be number one pick regardless. Robert says, we don't win with Melo. He's a chemistry killer. And that's a very good argument. That's certainly an argument to be made. Stephen, how you doing, buddy? He says, we win one or two more championships with him. Stop being a hater. Yeah, I hope that wasn't directed at me. I think it's an interesting argument because, again, what I would say was the Sheed addition is what really took that Pistons team over the top. They were a good collection. They were a good team, but they weren't a championship winner without Sheed or that additional piece. So if Melo was there, would that affected the chemistry to the point where they don't need to go get Rasheed, and that sort of changes the whole trajectory? But maybe they find a way to win a title a different way. Joe was the Brad Holmes of the NBA. Interesting take. I like that, Robert. Brian says, yeah, we definitely win a few more with Melo. Oh, don't know. That is in my future. That is a future Detroit Sports Time Machine segment. 1,000%. I didn't want to get into that ahead of this one because I think this one predates, obviously, what happened there. That also goes back to if she was or was on the team. If she just steps out and guards him, maybe they win that second title, but that's a different story. That's another sad one. His chemistry would have been being a bad boy. It would have really been interesting to see how Melo would have interacted. Now, remember, Larry Brown was the coach of that team. Larry Brown is a no-nonsense kind of coach. Would Melo and Larry Brown have been able to coincide? Could Larry Brown have kind of eased Melo into the situation where he's not needing to be premiered as often as we think? Or would that have been like a going at each other situation where Melo and Brown just don't get along? That could have killed the whole thing. So there's a lot of good arguments there. I love looking back at that. The truth is the Pistons won the 04 championship, so the going to work Pistons and that story sort of all makes sense. It's the history. It is what it is, but it's fun to think about what could have been. And I think that's it. Don't know. That's the best way to put it. I don't know if they win 04, but what happens from 05 to 08? What could they have won multiple titles as Melo grew into the role and they sort of developed what the new system with him in there could have been? So that's a great point. That's going to do it for this evening. I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. If you haven't already, make sure to slap the like button. It's the best free way to help out the channel. Sharing it out to your friends and family. Let's get more people involved in future lives. I am here Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. I apologize. I was off last Thursday. My son had a basketball tournament with the NCAA tournament going on. I just could not get my stuff together to give you guys a live show last week. So I apologize. I do plan on going live this Thursday, and we're going to start to build up towards the NFL draft. My apologies if I was a little negative on the line today in the Brad Holmes interview, but I just try to give you my real, tell you how I feel exactly in the moment. I'll give you the positive. I'll give you the negative. If you don't agree, I totally respect that. You could throw it right back at me. That's what this channel is all about, is that open and honest conversation. You guys can tell me how you feel. Tell me if I'm wrong. You can agree, disagree, but we can have good, open, honest conversation about our lines, about any Detroit sports team here. That's what Johnny Gaz Sports is all about. Thank you guys again for joining me. I appreciate you. Brian, Don't Know Grit, Millicent, Robert Murphy, Stephen, Lightning, Johnny G, Corey G, Broski Bear. I appreciate all you guys for getting involved in the chat. Jay Brick, Jody, Johnny. I see you all. I really do. I appreciate you in the chat. Come back and see me on Thursday. We're going to have more fun conversation, a lot of more good Detroit sports topics. Appreciate you, Millicent. Yeah, I'm always here for you. I'm going to bring the positivity. We're going to have fun. Again, I plan on having a lot more open-ended sports conversations that may not be specific into Detroit Lions topics all the time, or Detroit, Red Wings, Lions, Tigers, whatever it may be. But some of these time machine topics, some of the, best foods, those kind of things. So I'm going to start to bring those to the end of each and every live. So definitely come back and see me. We'll have some good, fun conversation. I appreciate you all so much. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy yourself. More than anything else, take care of yourself and your mental health. That is so important. It's really more important than anything else. You can't be good to the ones around you if you're not good to yourself. And I want to make sure you come back and see me on future videos. I appreciate you. I love you. Have a great rest of your night. I will see y'all real soon. Peace.